Ready for a Halloween experience like no other? Dive into the darkness at the Nevermore Haunt in Baltimore. Encounter bizarre creatures, terrifying visions of the past, and heart-pounding horrors that will leave you breathless. With live sideshow performances, an on-site bar serving local craft beers, and a haunted house filled with your deepest fears. The Nevermore Haunt is the ultimate Halloween destination. Open 13 nights in October, rain or shine. Get your tickets now at thenevermorehaunt.com. Are you brave enough to face the terror?
Welcome to another exciting episode of the South Baltimore Now podcast, brought to you by southbmore.com. I'm your host, Nate Carper, and today we're diving into the heart of our vibrant community to spotlight a local gem making waves for our beautiful city beyond its limits. Joining us today is Kenny Kulesz of Klik Solutions. Klik Solutions is a business born and bred right here in South Baltimore. They're not just any managed service provider or IT firm. They've recently earned a coveted spot on the Inc. 5000 list. This recognition highlights their incredible growth and their impact that they're making in the tech world and right here in Baltimore. What makes Klik Solutions truly special is their deep roots in our community. We're chatting with Kenny about their journey, the challenges they've overcome, and the innovative solutions they're bringing to business both locally and globally. So, whether you're a tech enthusiast, a local business owner, or just someone who loves hearing about South Baltimore success stories, this episode is for you. So stay tuned and let's get started. Kevin, what's up, man? Good to have you back here on the pod. How you been?
What's going on? Sitting here looking out at the harbor. Not a bad place to work.
Man, Kenny, this is a beautiful office that we're in right now. Once again, we're on location here at the Klik offices in South Baltimore on Key Highway. Kenny, want to say welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys coming down. I better get this right. 1000 Key Highway East, because when they built it out, it's a different address. We don't anyone. Not that we don't want anyone not to find us,
right?
Yeah,
Cool.
It's a great spot.
I guess at one point they thought they were done with Key Highway, and then 20 years ago they said, we need more Key Highway.
need more Key Highway.
They had the Key Highway.
Right.
And I guess you guys are I don't know if it's east, I guess you're west of where some of your other branches are, but I guess you guys are maybe the west branch of Klik Solutions.
You're better with the math than I am. I think you're right. I think we're west of one other, and then maybe south of the other one. I don't know. Yeah.
Either way, I know they have a good footprint between Europe and America and Baltimore.
In Baltimore, we do. It's a company that's Baltimore from day one. They actually started off as Federal Hill Solutions. I say they because I wasn't part of the organization. Then they started off as Federal Hill Solutions was the original name. First office was actually on Ford Avenue. Since this is a local-centric podcast, 3 doors down from Clip Art. If you know where Fort and Riverside intersect. Neil Constantoulis and Arthur Olshansky started the company coming up on 13 years ago. They started off there, and all of their Baltimore locations have been South Baltimore. They went from there, South Charles Street, right across from the former Metropolitans, now Game On, I think is the name of the bar, the restaurant there. They went from there to 1100 Wacomico over in Pigtown on, I want to say maybe the 7th floor of that high rise over there, relative high rise, and then moved here to 1000 Key Highway East. So I've bounced around the South Baltimore area and enjoy it. And like you said, contribute a lot, and it's good to be part of something like that.
Tell us a little bit about the global team. I know there's people all over.
There is. Arthur, one of the co-founders, is of Ukrainian descent, came here to the States when he was very young. And it's one thing for him to be able to support, not even just in the recent years with all the conflict and war that's going on there, but before that, to support that nation as in his heritage. So we have an office in Kiev that houses 20 to 25 folks, which actually also speaks to our larger business model. Being a managed services provider in the IT world, we are 24/7, 365 IT. Having an overseas presence allows us to have that 24/7 coverage with people monitoring at all hours of the day. We also have an office in Amsterdam that also houses one of the companies under the Klik Holdings, which is our cloud company. Molny has a presence there. We own our own cloud. So as you see all these commercials here, everyone's talking about, put it in the cloud. We own our own private cloud. There's obviously very popular solutions out there. There's Google, Microsoft has one. AWS is probably the most well-known. We host our own private one as well. So giving companies more of a smaller feel and also a more local option that they're not the small fish in the huge sea that is Amazon or Microsoft. So We have those 2 overseas. In the U.S., we have an office in Miami, adding to our customer base down there. A lot of marketing work for us down there. So we do that as part of our holdings, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then we have another office in Austin, Texas. We had a woman, Karen, who was here in Baltimore. Family took her out there to Austin with the blessing of it, wanted to start up the business there. We have techs that, when you call for support, are spread throughout the U.S., so that also helps us with covering shifts and stuff like that. And then here in Baltimore, we're sitting here at 1000 Key Highway. Within a couple days, we'll open our sales office up in the Rampart building of McHenry Row. I finally learned the name of that building. We've all been there for however long with sports and all that, but it's actually called the Rampart building. We'll open a sales office inside that. Dangerously close to THB, but we'll figure that out. And then we have our field services office, which is also on Key Highway, a little further down, and that's where a lot of our techs, if they're working with local clients, they sort of are there monitoring various requests that come in. Klik's a little all over, but we have about 105, 106 employees, depending on the day. It feels like there's a new hire thing coming out often, so yeah, it's been good.
What do you guys love about being in South Baltimore other than being close to Southside Diner?
Southside Diner is a big plus. You'll catch I'd say at least 2 of us in there on any given day. Shout out to Nick. I'm sure he's listening. I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. Like, I've been in the community now for, I want to say, coming up on 20 years. I love that it's something that can impact a lot of different people. You're seeing a lot of the same faces. You get a chance to make an impact. We sponsor a lot of things. We're a sponsor of Thomas Johnson's Fall Festival. We missed out on the Little League sponsorship this year. I guess we didn't know anybody there, but we'll get that fixed next year. Klik is going to sponsor the South Baltimore Basketball League this year. So they committed to local things and just the ability to entertain clients. We have events here. We had a pirate ship cruise off of our dock, but also put some of the notions, some of the preconceived ideas about Baltimore, like, to rest. Like, this is not this big, scary, terrible place. Yeah. So there's so many good things going on. There's so many good people. There's so many opportunities to help people. I think the ability to rewrite that narrative a little bit with our national clients and even like clients in surrounding counties come to the office. We're right off of 95, super convenient. We had the Urban Pirates, I think is the official title, the cruise that comes around the harbor. We did an event here and we had multiple people like, oh, this is great. Like, I didn't know. And for the 3 of us that live here, we're kind of like, yeah, this is every day. Like, it's pretty like normal. It can be like this.
The gateway to the world here.
So that's, I think, changing that story is fun. And then working with local clients, being able to see the impact. I think that's cool. We have some clients that are doing some really cool stuff, and when you're able to see it, as opposed to some of our other clients that are more distributed and you don't get to see your impact on their work, I think that's another plus.
Yeah. And obviously, hometown for you guys is Ukraine with Arthur's background. And I know I spoke with Arthur when you guys moved into this office. He was telling me a lot about how the education is really good in Ukraine. We're really good STEM education there, but the job market is not nearly what it is in America. So I know he was passionate about opening that office there, where I guess you guys have a lot of really intelligent engineers and other positions over there. So tell us about that office there and how the expertise those Ukrainians bring has elevated what you guys do at Klik.
So we have a division of our company called KlikSoft. There's a couple different divisions that specialize in certain things. And KlikSoft specifically is around our software development applications. So we can build custom software applications in a lot of popular languages. And the Ukraine has been, as Kevin was saying, it's really moved forward in European countries in terms of software development talent. So we have a number of software developers that work out of our Ukraine office that are able to build us custom web projects, that are able to do custom web development. My first client here at Klik, when I started just about a year ago, was a local South Baltimore roofing company. Shout out to Roger Shiflett, who you'll see all over Facebook, but came to us to fix their website. They were having an issue. We did all the custom development in the Ukraine. And what that allows us to do, besides having really talented people, is, as Kevin said, we're able to provide jobs, but it's a fact that offshoring is something that happens. Our rates are able to be super competitive. There's different aspects of offshoring, and there's certain challenges that come with it. One of the benefits of the Ukraine is the language barrier is not nearly as dramatic as it is with other offshore locations. So the communication is much easier, and I think people, let's face it, a lot of people have had that experience where you pick up, you call customer service. Customer service has been offshored. There's a very difficult communication situation. It's frustrating. and it gives you a bad vibe. It gives you a bad experience. With us being able to utilize the talent and then also their ability to communicate and speak directly to customers and clients here in the US, it is a differentiator, and it allows us to be more competitive with the rates we're charging. So it really is beneficial for a lot of people. Obviously, those folks are under a certain stress that hopefully none of us will ever imagine, that our country being at war in our area. Where they're at in Kiev is relatively unbothered compared to other areas of the country. There are some challenges that go with it, but it's an interesting bond. We have a charity that does a lot of work with the children there. One of the key things that we do with the children there is that we provide them English lessons so that it does give them more of a leg up to potentially enter a wider job market as they choose to move forward. Our charity's something Arthur's really passionate about, and it bleeds out to the whole company. It's when you watch him, and there's a number of other Ukrainian Americans that work here, there's tough days. And there was one, I think, last week where Russia sent 2 ballistic missiles. And that people walk in a little bit somber that are, if they're not impacted directly, they might have family or something like that. But I think it's made all of us a lot more aware of it. And the folks that we have working over there are really top notch, and they're a differentiator for us.
I love the fact that you guys are born and bred here, and I keep saying it, born and bred here in South Baltimore, have a global footprint. Clearly you're doing something right because you're growing. Let's get into it. I mean, this is a big deal that you guys made the Inc. 5000 list this year. That's huge.
It was huge. I will take all the credit. It's my first year here, and it's their first year on it. I'm going to bring that up in a review for potential salary raise. My personal journey with these guys has been interesting. I've known Neil Constantoulis, the other co-founder. We went to college together. And actually, I was working and hadn't figured out my way yet a long, long time ago. And I ran into Neil here in South Baltimore in the Royal Farms parking lot directly across the street. And I'm like, hey, man, I know you're in recruiting. I need a new job. And that's how I thought recruiting worked. And he's like, it's not how this works, but okay, idiot, I'll play along with you for a second. He's like, you should come check out the company I'm at. So went there and got into the IT recruiting field like 17 years ago, maybe 18 now. And so I did that for a long time. And so Neil and I worked together at a couple different companies, and he left one recruiting company. He was getting out of recruiting into IT sales managed services. So he left there, linked up with Arthur at that company, and wasn't a great experience. And so they're like, we don't need a company to do this for us. We could do this ourselves. So they split off and founded, at the time, what was Federal Hill Solutions. Neil and I kept in touch. We live a couple blocks away because South Baltimore, everybody lives a couple blocks away. So I obviously was in touch with those guys, met Arthur, got to know him really well. And in my recruiting journey, I started to help fill positions here at Klik. So when they needed IT talent, they would reach out to me and I would fill positions. Some people that are still here working. And so they've just continued to grow and grown through the office spaces, as I mentioned. So it was about a year ago. I wanted a little change, and the company I was at the time, a bunch of great dudes, they actually used Klik as their IT provider. Because when they started their company, they're like, who should we get for IT? I'm like, you get Klik. It's an easy one. Neil, Arthur, they're great. So I was actually a customer of Klik's. So I'd gone to Neil a year ago. He's really well networked. And I was just like, hey, man, I need to switch. I need to switch some things up. I want to do a different path of recruiting. And he's like, you've spent all this time making IT contacts. Why not come sell the IT instead of working with the people? So came in, met with these guys. It was a great fit. But I tell all that to say the growth has not been overnight. It has really been a long path. But I think what has really helped us in the last couple of years, and what honestly separates us from other managed services providers in the city, is we are something that's called SOC 2 compliant, which is one of the highest levels of IT security you can get. As cyber crime becomes a bigger deal, as cyber insurance becomes a huge deal, companies are now required to make sure that either their environment or whoever's hosting their environment, which is typically us, has that level of compliance, has that level of security, or else cyber insurance will not pay out if they're attacked. So we've had clients that have had a breach, and when they went to put in the insurance claim, the insurance company comes back and says, okay, show us this list of all the measures you took to make sure this wouldn't happen. And if you're missing things on that list, your cyber insurance company is going to say, nothing we can do. Not only are you out the money, we're actually going to drop your coverage. And now you're out there floating without cyber insurance, which is a very scary proposition in these times. As we've really upgraded our security game, as we've done a little bit more around digital marketing, which is our Klik digital arm, as our software development group has really found their niche. These guys, and mostly these guys and myself as well now for the past year, we've expanded beyond just your typical managed services provider that used to just be, okay, if you ever have a problem, call us, we'll fix it. Now we're helping companies strategically plan for growth. We're helping clients with all sorts of hardware issues. As they move to the cloud, how can they make sure that their environment's protected? And so I think our portfolio of offerings has grown so much over the past couple of years that allowed us to finally break that hurdle for Inc. This is the first year that we've applied for it. So that was a pretty big accomplishment. And I wasn't involved in that part, but I've heard it's a pretty arduous process. They are very thorough. You got to submit financials for the past 3 years. It's a lot to get on. So we were excited. Now the goal is, can we make it higher next year? And then as I was going through and talking with you guys, I kind of went through and researched. It looked like there was about 14 Baltimore area companies on there. So wow, all right, it's a pretty good accomplishment. And you're also pretty proud to you're one of a small group that made that.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and it's awesome that when you are looking for new office space, you're doing it right here in South Baltimore, not going somewhere else. You guys are committed to being independent and growing in South Baltimore, and it's really great to see. And I know whenever I'm talking to somebody that's starting a small business or maybe a business that wants to be big, I always say first thing you need to do is get a good accountant. But I feel like the second thing they need to do is probably call Klik Solutions to see.
You're probably in the exact right order.
Yeah. So say I have a startup business that I have big aspirations for, which why would anybody start a business? They don't have big aspirations, but what are some things you'd like to set up a small business with to run their company better?
So, I think the thing that we do well, one of the things we do well is we want to understand what are your goals. And we have a wide variety of packages, and we probably have something that fits you, but rather than tell you what that is, tell us where you're trying to get to. One of the client meetings I had that I really enjoyed, and I hope that we'll be getting them on board soon, it's a company that technology doesn't drive their business, right? So for them, it's not as important for certain aspects because they're going to still be able to make money. It's a paving company, right? And they're like, listen, technology helps us. It makes life easier. There's certain parts we need technology for, but if all of our computers go down for a week, we can still make money. We can still get out the pen and paper, do time sheet. Okay, cool. You fit into this bucket. You're more in this space. If you're a company that is relying on technology, another client we have that does really cool stuff around medical device creation. Technology is vitally important to them, and compliance is vitally important to them. Okay, you're more over on this side. We need to set you up with this. So I think what we want to do is we listen. We do a good job of listening. And then from there, it's a lot of our services can be bundled or a la carte. So having a little flexibility in our pricing, have a little flexibility in our offerings allows us to give you something that isn't going to break the bank, but also gives you peace of mind. Neil says it all the time. We want you to think of us as, in your organization, your IT department is our whole 100-person company dropped into yours. And so whatever it is you need, whether it's the printers down and the common things or the more uncommon things, where our largest client, and Arthur's just telling a story the other day, we got our largest client. They're a Fortune 100 company. They got referred to us because they had been hacked and they were locked out. And immediately we started on solutions to restore and back up as much as we could to get on. Arthur will tell the story. We actually started working without the contract signed. Now, we're not going to do that all the time. I just want to be clear for the internet. But we started working for them without the contract signed. It was built on trust. And as we started to back them up and get them back standing up, it turned into an engagement that's now multi-years and is growing, and it's a really cool scenario. So I guess to actually answer the question is, we want to know, how do you want to grow and what can we do to support it? And then from there, let's figure out how we can work together.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a small operation or, like you said, Fortune 100 to mom and pop shops.
I would say our sweet spot is 10 employees to 250, 500 employees is where we probably our sweetest spot, where we do the absolute best. We have clients that are larger. We put resources on site. I'm working with a client right now down in Annapolis that is a Maryland state entity that is in business for 90 days a year. And they pass a lot of important pieces of paper for 90 days. And so we're going to help them with some on-site resources, I hope, that they're going through something and they need someone to come down and help supervise on site. So I think our flexibility and our depth of services is what can allow a small company to grow, or we can come in and pick up for a mid-sized company.
I know an important part to any company growing is having a big college basketball party every year. And I
Huge.
think
It's the key point.
Kenny, you'll know he really loves that party.
That part's not bad.
And I think I've been going to that party for probably over 10 years now. So talk about some of the fun events you guys do out in the community that I guess are not only good for networking and all that, but probably good for seeing friends and community relations and all those things.
The good news is our events are never going to be a hard sell event. No one's coming up to you at these events and saying, why are you not with us, this, that, or the other. Our headliner, as Kevin mentioned, is our March Madness event. We've had it at various locations in South Baltimore. Last year, we went over to the Green Turtle in Canton. They had their sports book. We got a really great intro. I'll shout him out from Jeremy Kahn, who was super helpful in setting that up for us. That was a fundraiser for the Ukraine. Come out all day, watch the first day of college basketball, come out, watch the games. That's always a great event. As things were starting off with Russia and Ukraine, we did a supplies drive where we had Eric Costello down here, Mayor Scott came by. We filled up, I want to say, multiple U-Hauls of stuff that we could ship over to the folks in the Ukraine. At that point, I wasn't even working here, and I know I brought stuff over, and it was just, the line was out in the parking lot. Awesome. People waiting to drop stuff off. We have a friends and family picnic that's coming up. It's September 21st. If anyone's interested, I'm sure we'll be able to get you there. Our parking lot space with the water view and everything there lends itself to having some outdoor events. So we have a couple outdoor happy hours during the year. We have some events that are really tech focused. We have a tech summit that we host usually at a hotel where it's really technical. The college basketball is not technical. And we've been doing that forever, and that has evolved. We've been at rope walk. We've been at crossbar. We've evolved to different places as it's grown. And we try and do 3 to 5 events a year that are relatively open. Obviously, we love clients and prospects, but we don't turn people away. We like to have a good time. And more importantly, it is a neighborhood-centric thing.
If you check out their social media, it's a lot of fun. It's not just some boring tech company that's here. That's just very dry and cold, like you might think of in your mind of a tech company. So that's something I want to get out there is check out all their social media, their YouTube page. Arthur and Neil have a podcast as well. That leads me to this. Maybe there's some listeners out there in the community or beyond that are tech career oriented. Maybe they're getting out of college. I'm just curious for those that might be interested in getting into tech. It sounds like you guys are growing.
We're growing. We are growing. I also, for 17 years, I did hiring for tech folks besides just here at Klik. So I think as people are getting out there and getting into it, like the best thing to do is just throw yourself into it. Certifications are less important to some people. I know many people that started their IT career by just being lucky and getting that one break and hands-on and that sort of stuff. We are growing. We obviously have a local presence and we have folks working all around, but I think it's never a bad time to always talk to people, always networking, and who can we help? And I'm sitting here today because Neil was cool enough to help me. There's many people have come my way. Hey, I can't help you, but I can pass you on to the next person that can. And that's a mindset that permeates this whole company. We do a lot of work with referrals. We do a lot of work with having those events to just get people out to be like, because very rarely are people calling for their IT support unless something's wrong. So the key in this industry is being top of mind if or when something goes wrong. Because if you are with another managed services provider, changing from one to the other, while I think there's a ton of good reasons to do it, it's a pain in the ass. And people don't want to do that for just no reason. So you want to make sure that you're always providing what you have going on, what's the latest and greatest, and then say, hey, listen, we might not be the right fit for you today. We might be 6 months, it might be a year. We've been here almost 13 years. We'll be around when you're ready. I said that to a prospect the other day. I said, we just don't think we need that yet. Cool, no problem. I hope you grow and you need us. Yeah. And we'll probably be in the same exact spot. I guarantee my cell phone number will be the same. Just call, and when you're ready, it's time. And until then, if we can be of service, just call. Because you're entrusting people with a lot. We see it all. If we're your IT managed service provider, we're in all of your systems, making sure that no one else can get in them. But there's a trust factor, and people want to make sure that they know that they can do that. And for us, I think being local, having our faces out there, being proud of what we do, being in the community, I think helps build that trust. I've obviously known you guys forever. If I don't see it at a school drop-off, I see it at a Little League game or a basketball game, and the more people that just see you out and about doing it all the time, I think builds up that trust, and then you hope at some point comes to the exchange of business.
Obviously, Baltimore has its industries that have always been strong. When we think about healthcare and the military bases and finance and tourism, things like that. I know there's always been this talk to talk Baltimore up as more of a tech city. I know it's trying to make its way as more of a cybersecurity city. I'm not sure if that went where people wanted it to go. But in your opinion, working in multiple aspects of the tech and IT world, how would you say Baltimore is as a tech city at this current time?
It is such an underrated tech city. It is such an underrated tech city. So when I think tech, I first think like software development, because I think of that as just sort of the highest level of tech, right? There are some really good software development shops in this area. There are some really good companies that are anchor companies here that are like industry leaders in their industry in technology. T-Row is one of the best technology shops around. There's some other ones that have done some really cool stuff, and there's a ton of talent, IT talent and tech talent in Baltimore. It is a really good tech city. It gets a little bit lost, and then the other thing it has to deal with too is a little bit of stigmatism from being so close to DC, that the DC tech scene is not as innovative as Baltimore's due to the nature of the government, in my belief. And then so many of the companies around DC are supporting the government. That's their big push. And the government's just not as innovative. That's just what it's going to be. Baltimore gets away with a lot more than that. And it's, in my opinion, it's better than Philly. New York is the other one on the East Coast that I would say has it. But we have a lot of innovation. And I think so much of that comes from the strong educational. Hopkins puts out so many smart people. UMBC puts out so many smart people. It hasn't gotten it on the full enterprise level. It hasn't gotten the recognition, but like I was part of Greater Baltimore Technology Council for a long time, and I used to do co-working space down at Betamore. There was some really cool stuff happening there, and like people that have then sold to larger companies. I think that's one thing that Baltimore, I don't want to say I'm not gonna say it doesn't do it right, but I think that's where like we get lost a little bit in how cool the tech stuff we're doing is, because a lot of it gets gobbled up. A lot of it gets purchased. And therefore it loses that Baltimore flavor to it that holds on. But a lot of it was innovated here. This was the leading area for like online education for a long time. Sylvan, Laureate, and a ton of development was happening here. Sylvan had a ton of software development, Laureate. And then as they get purchased, whether it be private equity or something, some of that starts to move out. But a lot of the innovation starts here, and it gets really underrated as like an innovative tech city.
And hopefully you'll take those smart guys from UMBC and Hopkins to develop the stuff, but bring in those Towson Tigers to sell it.
The Towson Tigers to sell it. And maybe those innovative guys can make us a app so we can get cheap airfare, because I think we're going to the tournament this year. And so, you know, maybe Coach Scary, Ryan Scary, Chris Conway, all on the Towson staff. Maybe I can get those guys to listen to this. But if we're tournament bound this year, Kevin's already said, you know, the podcast is paying for the first 4 tickets, so I'm in on that group.
Kenny, this has been awesome, man. Really appreciate you having us in here today. If you need anything, give Klik a call, give Kenny a call. And again, congratulations on the Inc. 5000 and here's to better things.
I appreciate you guys coming down. We can have you back to the office around college basketball time if we need to talk college basketball, or whatever excuse to get back in here. You guys are always welcome.